Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Hola amigos y bienvenido a Reseñas Sin Remordimiento. Or for those who don't like subtitles, welcome my friends to Reviews Without Remorse. With me is the man who came to town with a guitar in his hand and romance in his heart, David. I am his partner Joe, and I didn't come looking for trouble, but sometimes trouble comes looking for me. This is episode number 58, and in this episode, it must be Take a Worm for a Walk week, because Daniel LaRusso, the original Karate Kid, is back, and Johnny is bringing Cobra Kai back to the Valley. Somebody get him a body bag. Yeah! We'll discuss it. The Merc with the Mouth finally cuts through the foreplay, gives us the official trailer for Deadpool 2. Now, let's go get our f*** on. And then finally, Dave and I will discuss the indie hit by Robert Rodriguez, El Mariachi. What's happening, partner?
Now that's an introduction. I have no idea. That's going to be fun to edit, but okay.
Remember the early days when we'd just say, hey, what's up? Welcome to the show. Hey, how's it going? You're the one who had to step it up, my friend, so.
Well, I you know what? I gladly take that. I will gladly take that abuse.
Challenge heated, my friend.
Bonsai! Daniel LaRusso here for LaRusso Auto. We are chopping prices on all of our inventory. Johnny? I knew it was you. This is Johnny Lawrence. He and I go way back.
Oh, this is the guy whose ass you kicked.
If you want to get technical, I kicked his face.
Hey, where you going, come in? Oh, I didn't know you guys were trying to buy beer. Hey! Watch your car, man. Get the hell out of here, loser.
So,
Yeah. After you, sir.
Let me just say this: when when this first started showing up on YouTube, or I don't know if I saw it first on a commercial or what, I said, please. I thought for sure this was going to turn into a commercial for something, or something, just some sort of a goof, almost like the Dundee 2 trailers, and it almost had a feel kind of like the those old Ferris Bueller car commercials they did a while back.
Yeah, huh?
I said I had my fingers crossed. I'm like, please be something. I don't know what this is, but please be something. Sure enough, Cobra Kai is returning to the Valley. Daniel LaRusso says, not on my watch. I can't wait. And I don't know what this YouTube Red, they're trying to, I don't know if they're trying to push this into something like an actual streaming service or what they're really shooting for with this, but you know what? They got my money already.
I saw this trailer, I think I pointed it out to you a couple of weeks ago, but then your response to me was like, yeah, I know. And that was pretty much all we ever said about it. I saw this trailer and I was like, this can't be real. And yeah, it's real. It's 10 episodes on YouTube's version of Netflix coming soon. The sequel, the true sequel to The Karate Kid with a grown-up Daniel LaRusso, a grown-up Johnny Lawrence, at it again. I feel like my brain is like exploding or something like that. This.
Oh my God! Right. And you're right. It's honestly been floating around for at least a month now, I guess. And honestly, we haven't touched it because I kept waiting for. Like I said, I was waiting for it to be like a goof or something.
Yeah.
So I was afraid to fall for it, but sure enough, I mean it's here and it's coming. They have multiple trailers now.
They got Mr. Ralph Macchio. William Zabka is back as Johnny Lawrence. I hear that Martin Kove, Mr. Cobra Kai himself, is going to make a guest appearance at some point. I mean, what the hell, man? This is like this is like a freaking dream or something like that. This can't be real.
Right? Oh my God! I tell you, it's awesome. I just the whole idea of it. I mean, there's a part of me that's kind of going like, really? Like, I mean, it's almost like they try to play it up where like Johnny's life kind of got ruined ever since he got the kick in the head. You know, and it's almost, and it's like, all right, well, I'm sure the poor guy had other things going on besides that, but you know what? Hey, you know what? Run with it. I love what they're doing. And it's so funny too because, like, I don't know, like there's parts of it that are almost kind of already overly cheesy and overly corny when you're really like, are they really doing it? But you know what? Who cares? It almost makes it better.
Yeah. I swear to you, I think this. I don't know if you remember this, but I'd say, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, some band did a song called "Sweep the Leg, Johnny." Okay, you should look it up on YouTube one time. It was actually directed by William Zepka, and it included a cameo from him and Ralph Macchio in it. And it is basically about sweep the leg, Johnny. It's all about Johnny's character, Johnny's Lawrence.
Yeah.
From, and I swear to you, I feel like when I first saw the trailer, I was thinking, is this like a sequel to that song? It's like, nope, here it is.
And you know, it's funny too. I've had so many people sending me this too. Like everybody keeps sending me like over text messages, over Facebook, over whatever. Like, have you seen this yet? I'm like, yeah, I'm way ahead of you.
Somebody.
Oh my gosh.
It seems your friends know you.
Oh, this is awesome. So I have my fingers crossed. I'm very curious to see how this actually plays out. Again, it could just be. I feel like at the very least, though, it's a couple hours of good nostalgia.
Probably. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
You know, what I mean, but at best, it could be fun. It could be something pretty clever. So I really got my fingers crossed for this one.
We'll see. I have a feeling we'll be doing an episode on it.
It could very well be.
It premieres May. No specific date as of yet, but it's supposed to premiere in May. On the YouTube Red channel, ladies and gentlemen. This is not an advertisement. We are not getting paid for this. We are just fans of Karate Kid.
Yeah. Again, something that every time I go on Facebook, it's like, hey, you want to try Facebook Red? I'm like, nope. But, hey, they found a way to separate me from a couple of dollars, so we'll see.
Actually, that may have been me.
Oh, you're living the dreams, DP. Yeah. Devil may care attitude. Strong thighs. Beautiful girlfriend.
Sorry I'm late. I was rounding up all the gluten in the world and launching into space where it can't not hurt us ever again.
Kiss me like you miss me, Red.
So, finally, a full-blown trailer. No more fooling around, no more phone booths, no more Bob Ross paintings. We have an actual Deadpool 2 trailer with actual story beats. Dave, what do you think?
Oh, God. What do you think I think? It's frickin' Deadpool. It truly, truly is. I'm just so damn happy. It made me so happy. His little jokes about X-Force, him, you know, turns out that this is a whole time travel. I've got to, you know, get this kid from Cable and everything like that. This is going to be freaking outstanding. I don't care what that one idiot says. And by the way, since that time when we talked about that one idiot who said, oh, it's not that good, yeah, I'm hearing now that the buzz is pretty damn good. So screw you, buddy. Yeah. This is Deadpool.
Yeah, I heard that too, and I also had that same reaction. Like, oh, did we snap at that hook a little too quickly? But hey, whatever. You know, it was news that week. But yeah, no, listen, I'm with you, and I'm hearing good things too. So, oh my God, this is really look good. This
is like a bad acid trip told well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, and the Easter eggs too. Like, I don't even know if they qualify as Easter eggs. They're more like just little funny jokes in the background. Sometimes, yeah. the stuff that you're seeing in the background of some of this stuff, it's like, oh my God, really? Like, so, I have a feeling I'm looking forward to this one too.
Yeah, and it's definitely on our calendar for this year. Truly excited. It looks like they know exactly what they. You know that Ryan Reynolds officially got a writing credit now for this movie.
That does not surprise me. In fact, I'm surprised it didn't have it last time.
Yeah, same here actually. But yep, no, this is it. I'm calling it right now. This is the superhero movie of the summer. Yes, that's right. Above Infinity War.
Wow, that's a bold statement, my friend.
I may change my mind later, but right now, yes, I'm with it.
Okay. All right, there's Dave's prediction.
I am all over the DP. I love DP. Is that
DP2?
Yep, DP2, because you can't DP with one, you got to DP two.
You're living the dream, DP.
In 1991, Columbia Pictures introduced you to an extraordinary new filmmaker and an unforgettable new vision. The director was 23-year-old John Singleton. The film, Boyz in the Hood. Now, Columbia Pictures is proud to present a remarkable new film from another extraordinary new talent. The director is 23-year-old Robert Rodriguez. The film, El Mariachi.
A traveling mariachi is mistaken for a murderous criminal and must hide from a gang bent on killing him. Written by Robert Rodriguez, edited by Robert Rodriguez, directed by Robert Rodriguez, produced by Robert Rodriguez, music by Robert Rodriguez. Basically, El Mariachi, ladies and gentlemen.
This is going to be an interesting review.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be quite as interesting for people as we think it is, because I don't see us doing anything less than just, make sweet love to every single scene.
I don't know about that.
I knew it. I knew it was too good to be true. Yes, yes.
Well, I find it, again, as I'm rewatching it, and again, I've seen it many times. I saw this in the movie theater. I actually saw this in the movie theater when it came out, heard all the buzz about it. I know my brother saw it too. I can't remember if we saw it together or if we saw it separately and just were yakking about it the next morning. But no, I literally saw this when this came out in the theater, because I remember hearing it was all this buzz about this filmmaker and how it was done. And honestly, when we watch this as sort of a lesson in underground filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And when I say underground, I just mean zero budget filmmaking, basically. So that's why I say I think it's going to be sort of interesting how we tackle this, because, again, are we going to review it as, wow, can you believe a young, inexperienced filmmaker with almost zero budget actually made this? Or do you compare it to just every other movie that we talk about and just say, hey, fend for yourself and, judge it fairly? It's hard to separate, but we will. And yeah, no, listen, I'm going to bloviate about it and praise it for all its magnificence, frankly. But but then again, does it age well? I'm watching it with people over the weekend who are going why are you watching this again? What's the point of this movie? And I'm like, all right, maybe it doesn't age as well as some, but
my thing was I felt it kind of aged okay. I mean, it is this was 1992, all right? Mm-hmm. We're talking 26 years ago, almost 30 years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
I don't think it aged terribly. I think that it's since been surpassed, of course, but this is, what, you're absolutely right. Now I'm taking a step back for a moment, and I'm thinking to myself, what really has me excited about this? The fact that this guy was able to do this on his own, or as a movie. I mean, because when you break the plot down, it's a very simple plot. It's probably the simplest, cheesiest plot of all time, but there's something charming in its presentation and its acting in this movie. Mm-hmm. Renaud Martinez as Azul, for example. I love that guy. He was freaking awesome. And this was a guy that they just basically picked up off the damn street for the part. And Carlos Gallardo was great as the Mariachi. He brought a lot of charm. He brought a lot of wit. Obviously not enough for the sequels, but we'll get to that. Excuse me. It's very difficult. To understand this, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to turn back the clock a little bit. 1992, Joe and I were 22, 23 years old, respectively. Mm-hmm. Oh, my freaking God, we're old men.
Amen.
And there's no country for us, man. We were like 22, 23 years old. We both had stars in our eyes with regards to becoming filmmakers. And at the time, there was like an onslaught of these fiercely independent people. You had Robert Rodriguez and you had Kevin Smith. And at some point, Quentin Tarantino comes along. But Quentin Tarantino, he was independent in name only. Somehow because what was his first big movie? His first big movie was really Reservoir Dogs. And that was a very high value production, if you think about it, especially with the amount of actors that he had. So, independent sort of in name, but not particularly. This is as independent gets. This movie was made for like $8,000. Yeah, $8,000. Even in 1992, $8,000 was still a lot of money. When Robert Rodriguez went in for a pharmaceutical study for like a month, wrote out the script while his partners all scouted out places in Mexico to shoot. When they'd say, hey, we found this, it's like, I'm going to write that scene in. Hey, we found this, I'm going to write that scene in. The book alone is worth the price of admission.
Oh, totally.
But now that I have to judge it as a movie, it's an okay movie. It's elevated by the fact if this was a movie that was made today by some big Hollywood guy or something like that, this would seem like terrible, like something. But this. I really feel like it's important that the context of what this was, be discussed and be part of the review process. This was originally meant to be like something that they would sell to some Spanish station, as a means of turning around a quick buck and then work on something bigger and better. That was the whole purpose.
Right. And the reason they even did it in Spanish is because they were targeting the direct-to-video market, and they figured to hit the Spanish market it has to be easier because it's a smaller niche.
And yet there were a lot of things there were a lot of tricks that they did to give it a glossier look. They got a lot of mileage out of that small amount of money, as far as I'm concerned. The film looks professionally shot. I mean, yeah, okay, fine. There's a couple moments where the camera shakes. There's these a couple of continuity errors, but honestly, I was floored still watching it, thinking to myself, $8,000 really? Did it really only cost $8,000 to do this?
And plus, keep in mind too, most of that $8,000 is going toward film stock.
Right.
Like today, you or I could if we tried to do the same experiment, we'd probably be shooting on iPhones or something, to keep the cost down to nothing. But back then, that to shoot on video was not a viable option. Right. So you were either shooting on film or you're not. Most of that money went to film. So there really was not much of anything left over for anything else. Yeah,
exactly. And, it's amazing what they got out of it. So what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is we have the story. It's a very, very simple story. The story is two very prominent gangsters in a small Mexican town, Acuna, Mexico. I think I pronounced that correctly. They're at odds with each other. And the one gangster, whose name is Azul, his signature is he carries around a suitcase full of various weapons. Now, into Acuna comes a mariachi who's from many generations of mariachis, and he wants to be a famous mariachi and everything like that, and he happens to be wearing black, which Azul happens to always wear black, and mistaken identity, hijinks Three's Company type situation, and suddenly he's running around Mexico trying to get away from these people trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Very simple story, very paint by numbers story-wise, but the thing that you have to admire about it, you have to admire the presentation, you have to admire the passion that each each person brings to it. I mean, Peter Marquette, for example, as Moko. Great.
Do you know,
great.
do you know how they met, by the way?
Yeah, they met during the study.
Yeah.
They met
laying in bed next to each other in the hospital doing these weird experiment studies or whatever they were doing.
Yeah, it seems there was like a whole community of people that would do medical studies, and that's where he met him.
Yeah.
And he didn't speak Spanish, so they had to basically give him his lines in Spanish to read out. And I felt like still he did a good job. It's a very simple little movie, but it's exciting. It still manages to be exciting because it's visceral. I mean, when he's sliding down the phone that phone line onto the top of the bus, everybody else in the world, to the jaded people in the world that look back at that, like, oh yeah, I've seen something like that 100 times. Like, no. That crazy son of a gun had no way of knowing if he was going to make it. Yeah. No, there was no stunt coordinators.
Right, and right. You're doing that without a net. You're doing that without wires. That was it. Like if he slips, tough noogies. You land in the street.
Yeah.
That you're absolutely right. And the idea that he was able to put together, he's able to put together an actual film that you and I would sit and watch just for the excitement of watching it is frankly amazing. Because again, this is something like this is a couple of guys just saying, let's go out and make a movie. There's no backing, no nothing, no special effects, no whatever. Listen, this is an absolute. It's absolutely amazing, and this really goes to show that Robert Rodriguez is born to be a filmmaker. This is what a filmmaker is, and quite frankly, I say to for anybody who is actually thinking about getting into making films, this film and the books and everything else is a must-see. You must sit and watch this film. You must read the book that he wrote about the making of this film. Even just watching this on DVD with the commentary is tremendous. In fact, and I love his first line in the DVD commentary because the Columbia logo pops up, and before he's even introduced himself, he says, "That Columbia logo cost more than my entire movie put together." So yeah, I mean, this is just a tremendous. It shows you what you can do if you really want to be. And frankly, I think today it's far easier. So it's one of these exercises where you say it's like there is no excuse for if you are a filmmaker. I don't care how old you are, what your experience level is, what your education level is. If you fancy yourself a filmmaker, you go out and you make films. Mm-hmm. Period. That's it. Because if this guy can do what he did with so little and come up with what he came up with, frankly, it was absolutely amazing. The story is excellent, and you're right. This was sort of coming off of the heels of like the Hong Kong, John Woo and all those great gunslinging films. Mm-hmm. He does his version, like a spaghetti western version of that, and comes up with this thing that is absolutely tremendous. And the story really, I mean, again, for a shoestring kind of a story, I mean, I almost feel like the script that he comes up with is so good on so many levels, frankly, that I feel like if you really did just throw a little more money at this and have enough time and resource to sort of put like a second polish on that script, you really would have had something spectacular.
Yeah.
Because again, not only do you have the makings of, again, it's kind of it's a guy caught in the wrong place at the wrong time that ends up getting involved in action and shootouts and all this great stuff, but you also have a character that himself is very likable. Like, I mean, and again, I don't know if this is something that had been done before, if maybe this is sort of a retelling of something else, but as far as I know, it's pretty original. The idea that he is a guitar player, he's a mariachi, right? It means he is a musician. So he gets just confused with a guy who happens to carry around, and this goes back to remember gangster movies in the old days where they would, like the gangsters would carry around, big giant guitar cases or cello cases, and that's where they would keep their machine guns or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is so that you gotta, the bad guy here carries all his weapons in the guitar case, and gets confused with this very likable character. So I mean, I really think the script is excellent, frankly, and I really think that sort of does stand up. It is kind of bare bones in terms of like you said it before. This is a short film. It's not a long film.
81 minutes.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking right, not even an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But again, for something that is, like I said, a shoestring, almost non-existent budget, this script really does carry it. Carry it along to that. It is actually definitely interesting. I mean, I can remember the first time I saw it being like very kind of, like not knowing what was going to happen next, frankly.
Yeah. It did manage to still preserve a lot of surprises. Surprisingly, for something that was, he wrote it in less than 30 days. He wrote it in less than 30 days. He shot it in a 2-week period. Okay?
Yeah.
And he took longer to edit the movie than he did to shoot it, because he had a very specific system. If you ever read the book, by the way, is called Rebel Without a Crew.
Yes.
I highly recommend that you check it out. Also, and this is kind of important as well, there is a TV series called Rebel Without a Crew. It is a reality series being run by Robert Rodriguez, where he's challenging 5 filmmakers, giving them a budget of $7,000 and the use of his studios in Austin, Texas, and 2 weeks to make a movie.
Really?
Yep.
This is coming out soon? Happening now?
It just came out. The first episode is already available online.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
So the timing on this is beautiful. I mean, that's why I was like, oh, wow, when I saw this. After I watched the movie, it's like, I want to see where everybody is. And, the guy who played Azul really did nothing else. The guy who played Moko, unfortunately, he died like 3 years ago. Carlos Gallardo still works with Robert Rodriguez on various things. And Robert Rodriguez, his next big movie is Alita, Battle Angel.
Oh, right. It's funny. It's funny because I had always wondered what happened to Carlos Gallardo after this. I mean, I know he basically does, for lack of a better word, he does a cameo in Desperado.
Yeah.
But after that, I never. I mean, honestly, when I'm watching this one, I really did say to myself, that guy, not only does he put a lot of effort into this film, but he's. I mean, again, the fact that he does the stunt where he's going down the wire, lands on the bus, and even just the part where he's sort of hopping off the bus, stepping on the truck or whatever, like that is a lot of running and jumping and whatever. So I mean, this guy really did put himself out there. There was a lot of work on his part to do this film. He
basically had to carry the movie as the star. He had to be charming. He had to be personable. You had to root for him, and. People sometimes think, oh, well, it's very simple. You just write this. It's not always as simple to make a good guy sympathetic. Think about what we talked about with Tomb Raider, how the writing definitely tried to make the affection between the father and the daughter apparent. But for whatever reason, the actors just didn't make it work. Okay? There is cases where even if you write it, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. In this movie, it happened. It managed very, very well. He was so charming, so personable, that every time he was in trouble, it was like, oh, look out, El Mariachi, because we don't know his freaking name. That's what we call him.
Yeah. That's interesting. Right, they never really say his name, and it's funny. It's almost like he's the Ed Norton character from Fight Club.
Yeah, exactly.
Like where you don't need to know his name. It's funny, and it took me a while before I noticed that, by the way. I don't know if that was intentional or whatever, but I tell you, I mean, and I agree with you that there's the rub too, as I feel like there are limitations to the film in terms of, like, casting is a huge problem, and I kind of feel like that's sort of the thing. Like, if you're gonna make a low budget film, you might want to try to, especially, it's funny because my brother has been involved in enough low budget or no budget films just for people to try to get their feet wet or show samples of their work or whatever. If you are trying to do a low-budget film, there are so many people who are struggling to break into acting that they'll do it for free. Yeah. Like you will go through a hiring process, the casting process, the same way a big-budget film might, because there are that many people who are willing to work. When you watch this, it's sort of painfully obvious at times that he's just sort of getting the people he knows from around town, or friends of theirs. Hey, can you be in the movie, whatever. I mean, I remember him talking about how like they were taking like 14 and 15-year-old kids and putting fake mustaches on them or whatever. I mean, those are the sort of things that I notice as I'm watching it now. Is like I feel like maybe years ago I might not have noticed it as much, but now as I'm watching like the bad guys run up and down the street looking for the mariachi, some of them are wearing like just white T-shirts or whatever, and it's like T-shirts with writing on it or just something on it, and it's like how much is like a shirt like a leather if you can't get them a jacket, like at least the guy who the not the lead bad guy, but I guess like his number one guy with the big thick mustache and the sunglasses.
Bigoton. Jaime de Hoyos is the actor's name.
Is that, I think they ended up calling him. I forget. The guy he lights the match on his face all the time.
Yep.
Like he at least I remember like at least he's wearing jeans and he wears like a heavy flannel shirt, so he kind of looks like he's dressed for the part. Like it's almost like he's there and he's like the best thing the closest thing they have to an actual actor, but he's surrounded by these 16-year-old kids who are just running around in T-shirts, holding like water guns, for guns or whatever. That to me is like the limitations that you see when you watch this film. It's really not in the camera work. It's not in your leads are pretty good, right? But most of your supporting cast, it's so obvious that they're just kind of guys that he just found, wherever. And even the girl who plays Domino,
Consuelo Gomez.
Yeah, I mean, and she's terrific again. But she's just a, and it's funny. I'm sort of tempted to talk about Desperado already, and I'm really resisting the urge.
You gotta hold off.
I know, but it's like when I watch that, it's almost like that to me is like, had I had money, that's how I would have done it. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you could see the limitations in this one. That he, that he's casting people that are, nice and can do a fairly decent job. Like even the parts later on, like I guess the parts where when the mariachi and Domino are finally getting romantic, right? Like he's performed now and she's starting to fall for him and they start to get romantic or whatever. Like obviously there's not going to be any passionate love scenes here. We're just going to turn the light out because again, I don't know you and I don't know you and I'm not getting paid for this and I'm not taking my clothes off and that kind of thing. And then even after that, I think there's like the dream sequence for one, and she's walking around with like a big white T-shirt on. Yeah. And I guess that's the closest he can get to intimate wear, saying to suggest that like they're like sleep attire, they're comfortable. It's almost like romantic without looking romantic, I guess. But when she's walking around with the big T-shirt on, it looks like a hospital gown almost. So it kind of
it's a nightshirt.
Yeah, but I'm saying, it's so big and it hangs. It looks like a hospital gown to me. So it's hard, like these are where the limitations now start to shine.
I see what you're talking about, but I mean that's that's showbiz, man. It's as simple as that. He took what he could get for however much he could get. Yeah. I mean, what was the Austin film scene back in 1992? It's not nowhere near what it is now. It was the early days. I don't know. I feel like I'm making excuses for the guy and some of the choices here because
it's I don't listen. These aren't attacks on it. Really, it's just sort of observations. I mean, like I said,
and you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong about it either.
I mean, if I could do something half that good, oh my God, I'd be making movies now. This is that's the thing about this film. It is a tremendous accomplishment. It really is. I still look at that today and marvel that a guy again with zero experience and again, I remember recording shooting. Movies on our camcorder or whatever, and he talks about editing it in the camera. I remember specifically we would edit it by hitting the little pause button and swapping things out or whatever. He's doing these kinds of shortcuts with a big film, and it just goes to show you that it really has more to do with your you're savvy when it comes to filmmaking and your understanding of film. For him to be able to do this, again, with zero formal education, with zero experience, with zero money, so I mean, again, I at the end of the day, I will always praise this film for being an amazing accomplishment.
Agreed. And it's
no
but it's
matter
not
how
infallible.
many things what's that?
But you're right. It's not infallible, and that's stuff we do have to talk about. So, I think where this movie succeeds, and I know you'll agree with me on this one, or at least I hope you'll agree with me on this one. This movie succeeds in editing because
absolutely
this is a movie that you can tell because of its cheap nature. It's because of the way that they had to do it. They literally at most had 2 shots to get at most, and I don't even think they did. I think they usually went with their first shots, or would come up with other tricks like, I'm going to film this shot because it's the end of the reel. I'm going to speed up the reel to the fast forward, like when the guy's dialing the phone number.
Yeah.
The problem that we're going to have with this movie, this particular movie, is because this was such a zeitgeist for us in our early idea of a career of being filmmakers that we studied it. We read his book. We may have even. I think. Did we try to cook the recipe that was in that book too? Didn't he have a recipe in that book?
No, he does the 10-minute film school that he does the 10-minute film school, and then he threw in the 10-minute cooking school on all his DVDs, which are awesome.
That's right.
And he did. It was the Once Upon a Time in Mexico where he does the Puerco Bibil, which for years I've been dying to try to cook that, but one of these days. He does some great ones too. He does one where he's smoking ribs outside in a smoker I think he did that for Planet Terror because there's like a rib joint in the film. Yeah. And he does this cook where oh my God, I mean, you watch that, you're just like, oh my God, I would love to go to this guy's house and eat. But God,
he's amazing. Well. And it's unfortunate because in a way all that has tainted our view towards this. I mean, I loved it when I first saw it. I loved it more when I heard the story behind it. How he would literally sit there and edit the scene in his head before he would shoot it so that he could save film. Because the film itself, the equipment was one thing. They rented the equipment and they had to keep that in good condition. But the film was the most expensive part. Right. And he actually talked at one point that he was like, well, it's cheaper to do it in black and white, but it would lose so much, and they cost them more just to do the freaking color. These are the guerrilla days of independent movie making, and this is the finest example of independent guerrilla filmmaker from that time frame. You stack up any other independent movie from that time, and when I say independent, I don't mean something that was financed by another company or something like that. This is independent filmmaking. This is akin to, somebody doing like a flash mob, and it works. Remember flash mobs, ladies and gentlemen?
And another thing you're kind of hitting on that I think is probably tainting us too is the idea that Robert Rodriguez himself he is such an incredibly likable person. Because he is so willing to share basically how he does things. Like another filmmaker might say, look, I got away with this and I got away with that, and because I knew these little shortcuts, I could make it look better than it was. But he doesn't keep his cards close to his vest and try to pawn himself off as a bigger filmmaker than he is. No, he said, this is exactly how I did it. Here's how I did it. If you want to get into film, Here's my tips and tricks for how to do. I mean, everything, soup to nuts. So that sort of that made this whole thing sort of an interactive experience for us too. We watch the film, watch the books, watch the commentaries. He does the 10-minute film schools on all this. I mean, he does these like how tos in all of everything. So yeah, I mean that part of it, amps up your whole. Like, oh my God, I want to go out and make a movie now.
Exactly.
That was the thing about these films is that you would walk out and you'd say like, oh my God, I seriously want to make a movie.
And we never did, but here we are. Yeah, it's very difficult. I want to give this movie a fair shake. I want it to be that we look at it as a film. But you know what? The good news is that as a film, you know what? I've seen worse. Tomb Raider is still worse than this.
There you go.
Tomb Raider was still much, much worse than this. Yeah. This was at least still entertaining. This was still engaging, visceral. All right, you know, the dream sequences might have been a bit too much, but
yeah, I picked up on that this time around too, by the way. But
yeah, it's like in his book he describes like need to pad some time, throw in a dream sequence. And it's like, well, okay, what do the dream sequences mean? What was the symbolism behind those dream sequences there, Mr. Rodriguez? Besides filling time, but. Again, that's the nature of what he was trying to do. This was not... The first thing you have to remember about this movie, this was not meant for mass consumption. He had no plans to do this any further than outside the Spanish VHS market.
Yeah. This was his audition, basically. This is more or less his audition reel. Mm-hmm.
And somebody at Columbia actually said, you know what? You should take that audition reel and we should just release it.
I mean, yeah, and this, again, like you mentioned before, this was at a time... when even the bigger studios were really getting excited by the new filmmakers. I mean, I still even remember the trailer for El Mariachi, where basically it was like, Columbia, a couple years ago, we put out a young new filmmaker. That filmmaker was John Singleton of Boyz in the Hood. Now this is our newest filmmaker is Robert Rodriguez and El Mariachi. So they propped this up to be. Like new fresh blood, new blood, new filmmakers. So they were kind of happy to get on that bandwagon.
Right.
Incidentally, too, another thing that Robert Rodriguez has always said, and I probably didn't even really notice it or take it to heart till this weekend. He always said the fact that he had done a foreign language film. Again, to him, he's just trying to get into the Spanish VHS yada yada. He says, but for people here, this was a foreign language film. And he said that he always felt that always seemed to give it a lot more gravitas than, had it just been in English. And he said, if you watch the dubbed version, all that added gravitas goes away. And he said, and I tell you, I started watching it this weekend, and a friend of mine had his copy on Vudu, but he had the dubbed version, which I had actually never sat through.
Yeah, neither have I, but go ahead.
And I started to watch it, and I was like, "Oh no, this is dubbed." Can I? And there was no way to swap it out. It was just it. That was that version. And so I started watching it for the first 20 minutes, and I was like, "Wow, this really does." It does not hold up as well when you watch the dubbed version. So I literally grabbed my DVD off the shelf, dusted it off, and watched that. I was like, no, I can't.
No, I don't blame you, dude. The movie definitely works better in its natural language. What acting they get out of the people that they get is much better because they're speaking naturally. With the exception of Moko, you can tell the guy is not a normal Spanish speaker. I'm sorry.
Right.
Rest in peace, buddy. But you were obviously not Spanish. Everybody else was.
But also, it gave these non-actors a lot of camouflage. The fact that we're reading the subtitles anyway, their little bit of expressiveness and just speaking their lines of dialogue, they get a lot more leeway, that way than had it been an English film. Again, it's like I'm taking for granted that these guys are acting, even though I don't know a word they're saying.
And it launched the career. It launched a trilogy. It launched a trilogy of movies, and which we're going to discuss as we go along. This is going to be kind of an odd one because we're going to be kind of on off for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first and. And here's the funny thing, ladies and gentlemen. Out of sheer honesty, as much as I enjoyed this movie, do you need this movie to watch Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico? Not necessarily.
Yeah, that is a great point. You know what? As you were saying, this is the beginning of a trilogy. Don't expect a 3-part story by any stretch.
Yes.
It's not that kind of trilogy. It is a weird one, and like I said, not to skip ahead at all, because we'll get there when we get there, but the next ones, I'd even say both the next ones are really odd in the way they kind of well, maybe I should leave it alone until next time. But I mean, yeah, Desperado is a weird one, because again, it's like, is this a sequel or is this just a remake? Because even watching it this weekend, because the people I was watching with, a lot of them had seen Desperado, but they'd never seen the original. So they're just looking at this and they're going, oh, is that I guess that's the Salma Hayek character, and oh, I guess that's that other character, and even the guy in the beginning going into the bathroom, they're like, oh, is that the Quentin Tarantino guy character going into the bathroom? I mean, and it was so shot for shot that I'm literally trying to explain that's not a remake of this. You know, like I go, it is, but technically it's not. Technically it's a sequel. But yeah, it is just so odd that the way he tackled that one, it's almost like he did that one as a way to say, look, here's what I meant the first time. Had I had money and whatever.
Yeah. And I think we're going to cover that a little bit more as we go along. Yeah. But you know, the truth is, as revolutionary and groundbreaking as this movie was for its time frame, it is a time capsule. And
yeah,
it's definitely one that it aged. I think personally it ages okay, but I think that mine is a little bit of rose-colored glasses because of, you know, we were there. It's one of those.
Right.
It's like my grandfather trying to describe to me what it felt like when Pearl Harbor was attacked and he was down there. Yeah. You know, like us trying to describe to like Liam, me trying to describe 9/11 to Liam. You know,
yeah.
It's not going to have the same impact. And to some people, they're going to see this movie and they're like, what the hell are these guys talking about? It's like, it's just one of those movies that just happened to be the right place and the right time at the right moment in both of our lives, and became a inspiration to us. And, you know, whether it bore fruit or not is another story for another time. But at the time, it was major for both of us, and I don't even remember if we had met at that point. I think we didn't meet for like another year or two after.
Yeah, we met after this film was out, but I think by the time we'd met, we had both seen it, and we both understood what it was and what it meant. And that's, you're right. That is a big thing. I mean, I will always recommend this film wildly to anybody who has an interest in film in general. Again, if you're just the kind of person to just go and buy your popcorn and pay and sit down and be like, oh, okay, that was good or that was bad. If you're just kind of a film goer and you don't really care about how it's done or how it's made, then you know what, you don't really need to bother.
Right.
If you have any interest in film, in how film is done and in actually doing it for yourself, then this is a must see.
Right.
A must see. Like, you absolutely have to see this film. You're right. This was a moment in time where, again, this was getting back to, and again, I don't mean to compare him to Tarantino, but I remember this like you said, this was the era when Quentin Tarantino first got on the scene as well. And you were finally starting to see, I mean, this was at a time where movies were so, like, you walked into every single movie going, all right, she's going to end up with him. He's going to kick his ass by the end of the film, and this is going to happen. You knew exactly what's going to happen for 90% of the films you go to see.
Yep.
When you saw like a Robert Rodriguez or a Quentin Tarantino, you had no idea what's going to happen. I remember seeing Pulp Fiction, saying to myself, I think this is the first time in my life I was ever literally sitting on the edge of my seat with no clue what's going to happen next. And you know, and again, and Rodriguez was part of that tidal wave, and he was, you know, Rodriguez was more of a return to sort of like, you know, fun over the top spaghetti westerns, you know, spaghetti western meets John Woo, but it worked. It totally worked. You know, I mean, and again, even he will say, like, this movie, like I said before about how, you know, the fact that it's a foreign language film gave it some gravitas, and he said, I don't think a lot of people really even understood I'm just doing a fun spaghetti western shootout.
Yeah.
You know, it's not meant to be high art, but a lot of people really did give it a lot more credit than it actually deserved, honestly.
No, but you know what's funny? I never saw it as high art. That was you and I don't think you and I did see it as high art. We saw the artistry. We didn't see it as art. That's what we saw.
And that's a good way to say it too. We could see the artistry for what it was. And again, I mean, and just knowing the story behind how this film got made, it just makes you go, holy cow.
All right, Joe, what do you say?
Is it that time?
We have, believe it or not, I was worried for a minute there. It's like, man, are we really going to film it? I think we talked more about this movie than the length of the movie.
Seriously. All right, I am going to this. I said before, this is going to be a tough one to score. And again, if I could split it up and say and give it one score for for a person who is passionate about filmmaking, and give it another score for just any schlub who just wants to, sit, watch a movie and forget about it tomorrow. And my score is probably going to reflect that it's probably nothing more than the perfect right there in the middle between the two.
Right.
If you are just looking for something to pop on a Saturday night and you're expecting something to dazzle you and you'll forget about it, for you, it's a 4 or 5. If you are anyone who is interested in filmmaking and just the art of what goes into creating film, it's a 10. It is an absolute must. I mean that sincerely. I mean, if I was going to do a class in filmmaking, which I am not qualified to do, I would say here's your class. Watch this film, read this book, listen to the commentary. There you go, and take that and run with it.
Yeah. And that's the end of your film class, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.
Pretty much, yeah. Joe's Film Class 101. Do this, watch this, read this. Having said that, I'm going to average it out as a 7, and say again, it's you can't watch this, and you started to say this before. It's frustrating that, like, and we've said this in the past, like when my nephew watches The Matrix, I don't know if he's going to appreciate it, or am I going to sit there going like, no, you don't understand. This was the one that started. This is the one that. This one falls into that category. You have to understand that this was a place in time, and this was groundbreaking for what it was. And I personally think that a lot of other filmmakers changed course based on this film, based on this nobody who had never made a film before and is now just doing his truly independent film with zero budget, frankly, if you take away whatever. Again, it was a moment in time, and this really was almost revolutionary in what it actually did. So, again, all right, but if you're just looking for something to kill 2 hours, this 87 minutes might not be your thing. So, with that, I'm going to level out as a 7 and say, again, I really need. I think you need to really appreciate it for what it is, but I can't score it as that. I got to score it for what the final product is today, so I'm going to give it a 7.
Very, very, very fair. And frankly, I'm going to agree with you across the board that this is a movie that truly deserves 2 scores. It's not really worthy of just 1 because it's less about what it is than what it represents. This movie was hope. This movie was hope for millions of people, I imagine. Million. I'm saying millions. Maybe that's a bit hyperbole, but I really feel like people looked at this movie and realized you can do this. What am I waiting for? That was the place and time that this movie came out.
Yes,
I agree with you 100%. As a movie for filmmakers, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is the movie that you watch this movie first. You find the book Rebel Without a Crew and you read it, and then you watch this movie again.
Yes,
and that's all you'll ever need. With the commentary. And that's all you'll ever need. If you have passion to be a filmmaker, that's all you need. Because that's That's basically how Robert Rodriguez describes himself.
Yeah.
The man is a Renaissance man. The man went on to build his own visual effects studio, his own music studio. Like, if you ever see the Spy Kids movies, he did all that. He did the visual effects for that, too.
Yeah. He's
This
right.
guy-
He has to be one of, even to this day, has to be one of the most hands-on filmmakers doing. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like you said, the guy does his music. He does all of his own everything. The effects are his. I mean, you've never seen a more active filmmaker when it comes to his own creations.
100%. But, like you said, we're judging this particular product. And coming out of the gate is a very strong start as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to agree with you with the 7. The 7 is 100% pitch perfect for this movie. It's not a perfect movie. It doesn't have all the perfect things going on there. So, no, you can't necessarily give it a 10. But even if you put aside the film, the filmmaking aspects of it, it's still a fun little romp.
Yes.
It's still a fun movie to watch that even to this day is still fun. So, yeah, 7 easily, with no shame. If you haven't seen it, ladies and gentlemen, see it. If you consider yourself a filmmaker of any sort, have any aspirations to be a filmmaker, this is the movie to see.
I totally agree. I feel like what Rocky 4 is for getting in shape, this is for young filmmakers. This is the Rocky 4 of get out and make yourself an independent film.
Agreed. Which I feel still holds up. Especially now. It should be easier now, for God's sakes, ladies and gentlemen. You have phones. Every single phone is a potential cinematography thing.
Do you know that apparently who's the guy that did Ocean's 11?
That would be Soderbergh.
Thank you. Steven Soderbergh's newest film, apparently, and I forget the name of it, but it's about a girl who's in a lunatic asylum or something or other. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he shot the entire thing on an iPhone.
Really?
No joke. And he actually said, like, he did it. I don't know if he did it purposely as just an experiment to see if he could, but he absolutely shot a full movie on an iPhone, and it's out now. So yeah, that there you go. That is how cheaply you can film. You can do a movie now, and literally get away with zero equipment, zero cash, zero whatever.
This is Steven Soderbergh we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steven Soderbergh. He's considered the auteur of the day.
So he was a guy, frankly, around the time of Rodriguez. He was another independent filmmaker who really came on the scene like these other guys did.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I remember.
Late 80s, early 90s. I can't remember which, but again, he's around that same era where he did a very, very low budget film and it put him on the map.
Yep. The movie, by the way, you're talking about is called Unsane, and it just came out this past week.
There you go. So and I'm curious to follow up and find out why he did this on his iPhone. Like, was this just a goof? Or was this? Did iPhone sponsor this? Did he want to see if he could actually do it? Apparently, he was quoted as saying that he did it and felt like no one would even notice that he did. Like that was his thing. He said he was thinking. He said I shot the whole thing on my iPhone, and frankly, I don't think the passing viewer who doesn't really know film would even notice. And I've only seen clips of it. I haven't seen the film, but I'm curious to follow up and see why this little experiment exists.
I don't know. I would love to see it myself now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah.
Now, so that aside, talking about the wonderful time of cinematic independence from the 90s and 80s, Joe, who asked you?
Who asked me? You know what? I was originally going to go with the dream sequences, and honestly, nothing, frankly, screams amateur filmmaking than dream sequences. When my brother was in school, apparently there was one of the students while he was going happened to be a little person a midget.
I'm so sorry.
And apparently he was. I can't remember if he was. I can't remember if he was in the film classes or just happened to be at school. But he said at some point he goes. He's like, if I had a nickel for every film student who comes and asks me to please be in their dream sequence. I mean, this is like around the time of like Twin Peaks also.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so the dream sequence was one, but I actually, upon rewatching, the thing that I struggled with, and I really felt like it, and again, I understand this, it's budgetary things. It's one of the things you just can't have because you don't have the budget for it. Mm-hmm. The music. The music in the background, and again, I kind of find that in a lot of cases, music can really kind of elevate a film or pull it down. In this situation, it was one of the things that did not get the focus that it needed. Yeah. And again, I'm it's not a crack. I don't know what he could have done about it. This is long before, royalty-free music that you can download or whatever. I think it's just a matter of like if you know somebody who can do it for you or not. And it's just one of the things I guess he did not have in his arsenal. So again, the action is great. The editing is phenomenal. But then there's times when that kind of like just kind of music in the background, which sounds like just somebody hitting one or two keys on the Casio keyboard,
which they made fun of in the movie.
Yeah. I found that after watching it this time, I found it to be very noticeable. And I feel like if somebody had sort of recut this with an actual music track, because again, another thing that Rodriguez happens to be gifted at, by the way. But again, we'll talk about that when we go forward. Here again, it was lacking, and I did notice it pulled the movie down. Yep.
You know what? I can't fault you for that because I kind of agree. It's a movie about a guitar player, and what did he do? He played 2 songs, and right. Both songs were just okay. I mean, granted, one was with a knife to the guy's penis, but the other one, the big song that was supposed to be there, was just it was okay. Yeah.
Right, again, and if you watch the making of, they had a friend in town who worked as something else, just happened to play the guitar, and he sang, and they grabbed it, and they said, would you do a song, and he did. So you're again, as amateur as you can get, for what it was, it worked out fine, but again, as far as the score in the background, it's a little rough.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with you on that. Well, for me, it was the gosh darn dream sequences, man. I was just God bless you. I was watching those dream sequences this time around, thinking to myself, did I really think I was that deep back in the 90s? Because I seem to remember thinking, oh my God, this is a brilliant little aside that they're putting in there. And now I'm watching, it's like, no, I can't even claim pretentiousness. It's not even a pretension thing. It was literally, and he admits it. He fully admits it. The dream sequences were nothing more than padding. He needed needed to add more time in the movie, so he made sure to shoot a bunch of dream sequences, and he edited them in as he needed them.
Yeah,
that's it.
I totally agree with you. And it's funny, and as I was watching it this time. Again, it's been a long time since I sat and watched the film from beginning to end. I remember watching it, and the first time he has one of these dream sequences was right before the gunmen show up at his hotel room. And right. I remember saying to myself, like, okay, is that fluff? Like if I had to, if somebody put a knife to my throat or a knife to my ding dong, and I said, and made me come up with a reason why that's there, I guess you could say it's impending doom. This was a premonition of something bad happening, and death did follow that. Okay, I mean, again, the first one was the guy, the kid rolls the basketball, turns into the head. Mm-hmm, so, yeah. All right, death followed. All right, I suppose. I mean, I suppose you could argue them away and say, but you're like you said. I mean, if Rodriguez kind of just said, they're filler, then they're filler. Mm. So, I mean, they're not terrible, but yeah, it's like I said, nothing screams amateur filmmaker than dream sequences.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, for your consideration, Joe.
Listen, I have to just sort of go for the obvious and say this is one. I mean, everything points in one direction to Robert Rodriguez, the filmmaker. This guy was an absolute talent, and again, this is This just goes to show how easily this guy, and I don't mean easy as if this was easy to do, but again, for something with zero budget, and you're just relying on the talents of one person to make this happen. You have a shoestring budget. You've got a cast of nobodies, and for him to actually put this together is nothing short of spectacular. Yeah. And it just goes to show that this guy is talented beyond talented. I frankly, I will also say that I to this day wonder if his talents have really been fully realized. I don't know if I can really think of one particular film to say this is Robert Rodriguez's just absolute masterpiece, and and this is why he's so good. This is what he's always been working towards. I still feel that he's has not done his best work yet, but there is absolutely no challenging this person's talent. He is truly remarkable. And again, for somebody who does, they write, they shoot, they direct, they edit, they do music, they do special effects. This guy does everything.
Yep.
So you really have to. It's like a lightning rod of praise that just goes right to him, no matter which angle I'm going to tackle this on. So there really is nothing else I can say about it. As far as for your consideration, it is Robert Rodriguez.
I got to grant you that one, man. For me, I completely 100% absolutely agree with you in that assessment. But this movie was life-changing for me in one respect, in that I never appreciated editing until this movie.
Yeah.
This was the movie that made me appreciate what exactly editing is. I just thought editing was just, putting it together, and it was nothing, tape here, slash this, so on and so forth. This is 92. I was 22 years old. What the hell did I know? I barely knew what kind of beer I liked. I was still drinking Budweiser. God, what is I naive? Anyway.
At least it wasn't Coors Light.
I don't want to talk about it, all right? I was young. I was stupid. I think she was pretty. I don't know. I was drunk. But when I saw this movie, I was like, man, that was quite amazing. And he really only made that at 7,000. And then I read the book, and I read his description of what he did and why he edits and so on and so forth. And that was kind of like a light bulb to me. That was that light bulb moment in like, oh my God, I cannot believe I've just dismissed this. How arrogant of me to think that something as important as this. How he was able to use editing to save certain things. Like, they come into town. Oh, look, there's a guy with a coconut. Let's film him eating a coconut. And the guy cuts it open, gives him the coconut and everything, walks away. And then it wasn't until later, it's like, oh, shoot, he never paid for the coconut.
Right.
And they wind up looping in a line and making a whole little tiny little story about it and everything. And it's like, something like that I'd never appreciated. This movie made me appreciate that. This is an expert chopper, as they would most likely call it, at work. The man planned all of his shots with great care, pretty much edited the movie within his head, and it shows with how he did it. Do you know how, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Rodriguez edited this movie? He had the film transferred to videotape. He edited it using 2 VCRs. That's how he edited this movie the first time, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So that goes back to what you were saying. Definitely hats off to the man himself. The man is a true Renaissance filmmaker and has not hit his best work yet.
Yeah. Honestly, just go on YouTube and look up the 10-minute film school for this. Mm-hmm. Even they show the shot of when the guys finally do get Moko in the street, and there's like 3 or 4 guys around him with guns right to his face, and the guy with the thick mustache and the sunglasses, he says something like, they opened up the guitar case, and he says like, if this is a guitar, you're good to go. Don't worry, but if and the guy's sweating like he knows he's gonna get his head blown off any second. Well, all they show in this is the when he does the shot of the mustache guy saying, we got you, and goes to open the case. There's he in one shot with no breaks. He starts talking. He's kind of in a medium. His second line, he zooms in, gets the close-up shot. Then he comes back out again and, pulls out to show him opening the case. And it's like, like you said, he planned all his shots in his head. The zooms are not there. They cut to the other guy, they cut back, and here's a close-up because it's the threat is worse. Then they cut back, and he's opening the case. When you watch how they do that, it's like, wow. I mean, it's like the guy knew exactly what he was going to do beforehand. So, again, he makes it look easy.
Yeah. Almost too easy. It's almost painful.
Yeah, it's excellent. And again, you talk about a guy, because of that editing, you're talking about, I'm 90% sure he shot every single thing on one camera. He makes it look like there's multiple cameras going on in this, in a lot of these shots.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right, too. I think they only had the one camera. God, 24 reels of film, one camera. God bless the man.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Wow. That was fun to discuss. That was a lot of fun to discuss.
I was gonna say, I guess that's our discussion of El Mariachi. I like I said, it really, again, I kind of feel like you kids don't know how easy you got it today, but I hope you appreciate guys like Robert Rodriguez because they made a lot of this possible.
Get off my lawn. It's very true. It's there. We're gonna cover a lot of movies that are way too old for some of our audience, but just trust us.
Yeah.
There was a time, there was a place. This meant something. This is like, I guess it's the most I can come up with is when somebody tries to watch Citizen Kane. When I first watched Citizen Kane, it's like, I don't get it. What is it about this movie? And then I looked into it, it's like, oh. And I was able to appreciate it a lot more then.
Yeah.
This was kind of our Citizen Kane. This was the movie that we lived through that made us realize that the only thing holding us back from our filmmaking dreams was us.
Mm. And especially today. I mean, again, when you think, again, this is a guy who checked himself into hospitals for them to do experiments on him to get paid like $10,000 so he'd have money to buy film. You folks don't have to do that. You could take your little iPhone and run around and do professional grade stuff now. I mean, these phones now shoot like 4K. You can do tremendous. I mean, I've seen lenses, by the way, that you can put on your phones that are, wow, holy cow, amazing. So yeah,
we should make a movie, Joe.
I tell you, right? Sometimes I say, why are we not doing this? But yeah, like if you have any inkling to do film or to get into film, you can't miss this film.
Agreed. But next week.
What is next week?
Ready Player One.
Is it? Okay. All right.
That's
Ready Player
this
One.
week. Yes. Ready Player One, a movie about a man who hides an Easter egg inside of a video game, is coming out Easter weekend.
Ah. There you go.
So yes, Ready Player One is next week, ladies and gentlemen. And now talk about like going. Is this our first Spielberg movie that we're reviewing? I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah. I think you're right.
My goodness, that's going to be very interesting because this is modern, Spielberg. This isn't top of his powers Spielberg. So it'd be very curious to see how he does.
Very true.
And I'll be very curious to see how he translates the movie. So, and honestly, I like that you haven't read the book. This is going to be, I think next week's episode is going to be quite interesting because I'm going to be approaching it from the guise of somebody who read the book, and Joe is going to be approaching it from not. So
there you go. And after that, we will return to the El Mariachi series.
Yep,
finish out the trilogy.
Yep, we do Desperado. Actually, I don't know if we finish out the trilogy. I think next week is Ready Player One. And then the week after is Desperado. But the week after that is going to be the Avengers. And then Avengers Age of Ultron, because the week after that is Infinity War.
Right, okay. Gotcha.
So I don't think we're actually getting to Once Upon a Time in Mexico. So, yep, May 7th. We're recording that May 7th. Yeah, so we'll be taking like a 1-month hiatus.
Yeah, right. This was... Infinity War really kind of goofed up our schedule a little bit when they decided to move that around.
Yeah, we had it planned out a lot better, but you know what?
Han Solo moved around too. I think so. There was a lot of weirdness happened around this time.
Deadpool got moved around. Han Solo got moved around.
Yeah,
Infinity
a lot of
War
shuffling
got moved
going
around.
on.
Yep. But don't worry, folks. It'll all make sense once the podcast gets released.
All right, my friend, another great show in the tank. Thank you,
I agree.
sir.
Thank
Nicely
you.
done.
Thank you very much, sir. And good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, my good friend.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.